Okay, everybody, welcome back to the Wednesday show. It is day 5 of the 8 days of Vegas tips and tricks. And my hair looks like how I feel after all these YouTube videos this week. Definitely got to give a thumbs up and a shout out to all those folks that vlog on almost a daily basis. I don't think I could do that normally. So today's show, we got a couple of segments. Well, we have 3 segments. We have a couple of segments that I'm going to be doing, and then PJ is going to have another one of these terribly valuable tips. You're going to want to stay tuned for it. It could be life-changing. We're going to start out today with a field trip. We're going to head up to the University of Kansas campus. We were there briefly during our Oregon Trail discussion last week and got a number of comments about the campus. So I thought today we would do a little walkabout on the campus, and that would be our little field trip for the day. A little bit about my history, I guess, because I did spend, nearly 7 years as a student on the campus. So there you go. If you didn't know that, now you do. There may be a quiz. And then the second half of the show, we will talk a little bit about Vegas history. There's no This Week in My Vegas history this week because I have not ever visited Las Vegas during this week in June. In fact, it's going to be a couple of weeks before we're going to have another This Week in Vegas tips and tricks history. But we will talk about a hotel that opened up this week, 25 years ago today. That's going to be in our last segment. But let's go ahead, without any further ado, we're going to show you our tour of the main campus at the University of Kansas. So stay tuned. Okay, everybody, so last week we briefly stopped in at the campus of the University of Kansas. Today we're going to take a little walk around sort of main campus area. Now, way off in the distance there you can see the football stadium, Memorial Stadium. We'll probably revisit the campus on a few other occasions for one of our field trips. But today we're going to just kind of walk along the main area. Off in the distance you can see the Campanile, which is a memorial to the students from the University of Kansas that served in World War I. It is a bell tower, that's what a campanile is, and it does in fact ring off on the hour. So, alright, so we're heading upstairs. The main campus area is on a hill, or as we like to say here, a mountain, Mount Oread. And if you remember last week, we looked at the Chi Omega Fountain, and we were on the opposite side of the street. But today we're going to walk around the main campus area. It is, I think it's fair to say, quite picturesque. One of the more attractive campuses, certainly across the Midwest and even throughout the United States. Even though the nomenclature is that this is the University of Kansas, someone in a comment last week referred to it as UK. Right or wrong, we refer to it as KU. That's Marvin Hall. It's where the, those architects, architecture. That's what they do at Marvin Hall. So, again, you can see the Campanile and part of the stadium back that way, and you can see we're up, certainly on a hill. Most all the buildings along here have been here in some form for decades. Snow Hall, which to my knowledge is still sort of where the biology department is centered. Most of the buildings here on the main campus are connected to the Liberal Arts College, which is the largest college here on the campus. So, And it's certainly where most of the undergrads, certainly in their first couple of years on campus, are likely to spend a lot of their time. Across the way is Hoch Auditorium. It is typically a place, it's been here a long time. At one time, it was where the basketball team actually played. For a lot of years, it has hosted large sort of auditorium classes. Again, typically frequented by freshmen and sophomores. There was a fire at Hoch Auditorium. Oh, it's probably now been over 20 years ago, but it was refurbished and repurposed. Coming up on the left and the right are two of the biggest and most interesting, I guess you'd say, buildings on the campus. We'll start on our left-hand side in this sort of almost Capitol-like building, which is Strong Hall, and it's sort of the main administrative part of the campus, where the chancellor and also the sort of center, as you can see on the sign up here, of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. So, the classes I remember taking at Strong Hall were math classes, interestingly enough. Now across the way we have WESCO, which is a 1960s vintage structure. Has all the charm of a Soviet-era apartment complex. The interesting thing was, it was originally supposed to be like many more stories high. I don't know if they ran out of money or if someone said, wow, isn't it ugly enough the way it is? But it was supposed to be sort of a high-rise, which I suspect the idea was at the time that it would sort of host most of the university's activities. But again, here we can see a pretty good view of Strong Hall. And of course, in front of it, you have a statue of a jayhawk, a mythical bird. The Jayhawkers were, well, quite frankly, sort of Free State terrorists. But sort of a warm spot in our heart for them around here. The area in front of WESCO is colloquially known as WESCO Beach, kind of a place that students tend to hang out between classes and socialize and such. It's after 5 o'clock here, and it's in the middle of the summer. There are summer classes, but they've long since ended today. So there you go. But WESCO is still a huge building, and again, commonly a place that undergrads spend a good deal of time. The university newspaper is dispensed at a number of these little vending machines. They're not really vending machines, but you get the idea. As you can see, both Strong Hall and WESCO are pretty large buildings. The university dates all the way back to 1865, and we're closing in on some of the oldest parts of the campus here on the left and the right here in a few minutes. So, sort of past WESCO and off in the distance behind the little bus stop area is Flint Stouffer Hall, which is where the journalism department is centered. This street is, as you may have guessed by reading the signs, is Jayhawk Boulevard. The campus actually extends quite a bit to the south. As I say, we may revisit that at some point. And there's even a West Campus area. But this is certainly the most picturesque part of the campus. The part you would show people if you're trying to convince them that this was a really nice place, which it generally is. The university has a reputation, certainly in the state, of being a sort of hotbed of radicalism and liberalism and sort of alternative culture, which has certainly been the case at least since the 60s, when there were protests and the whole campus went on strike at one point, as I recall. We're going to go ahead and cross Jayhawk Boulevard here. And head up this way. Yeah, there's another building most students of all ages and persuasions will spend a lot of time in, the Watson Library. It's a pretty nice library, pretty extensive collection of documents and such. Despite being in a relatively small state and sharing the sort of glory, I guess you would say, with our friends to the west, Kansas State, KU actually has a pretty large endowment, nearly $2 billion, which is in the top 25 anyway of public universities. Certainly the library has benefited from that. Then straight ahead of us on the, well, literally straight ahead of us, is Fraser Hall, which is sort of the original structure on the campus and one of the taller buildings, actually. You can get an office up on one of the top floors. You have a pretty good view, really, of the whole city. In fact, I would say it's almost certainly the tallest point in Lawrence. Off to the right, if you veer that way, kind of see the building behind the trees is Blake Hall. Spent a lot of time there during my couple of years as a graduate student. I was also a teaching assistant, and my office was at Blake Hall. It also hosted the social welfare department, which was an interesting mix of people, certainly. Not necessarily with the same sort of ideas, but anyway, there's Fraser Hall. The other reputation that the campus has, certainly within the state, is being kind of snooty. The designation, the sort of derogatory term for the campus that's frequently used is Snob Hill. And there's certainly a fair number of people here who would probably fit that bill. Despite its sort of radical reputation, there is a thriving Greek community as well. Fraternities, sororities, that sort of thing. I believe that's Lippincott Hall. Originally, I don't think it gets used that much. Originally it was the center of the School of Law, but I think that has moved. To the right, as we're passing here, it's really bright out today. It's about 90-some degrees. So I'll have to apologize for the fact that some of this may be a little bit jittery and you may not be getting the full experience. This is Danforth Chapel, a popular location for weddings, particularly among alumni. So we've nearly made our way around the sort of main campus. We'll head up here to the Student Union before we call this little tour, this little field trip, to a conclusion. We're about 12 minutes. Normally you have to listen to me talk for 12 minutes and there's no scenery. You can see a lot of old sort of, I think it's limestone is what a lot of this stuff is. But don't quote me on that. Again, this is, I think, I don't know what's in Dyke Hall exactly. across the way. And honestly, I don't know what this is either. Can't remember. But again, a very old building, still in use. So straight ahead of you, you sort of walk out of the campus. At this point, the football stadium is now off to our left. The neighborhood in and around here is a kind of student ghetto. A lot of old houses, cheap apartments. Definitely an option. We're going to cross the street here when we get a chance. So it's these cars to sort of cruise by. So you can imagine when classes are in session, this is it's wall-to-wall people. So here in front of the Kansas Union, which was set aflame, there's controversy about exactly what happened, but it was set aflame back in the 60s. It has expanded dramatically. But in front of that we have a number more Jayhawk statues of varying vintages. So we'll walk around and look at this. This is Asher Plaza. Not really sure what that is meant to designate. But you can see the evolution of the mythical bird as we walk around and take a look at it. A Jayhawk from 1929, over 90 years past, and then one from 1941. Again, you can see we're still at the sort of the top of the hill. And you can look out and see the Campanile. Of course, there's stairs that'll take you down. There's parking down that way. And then you have the sort of modern Jayhawk that is represented right here. And presented by one of the sororities on campus quite a number of years ago. So that kind of wraps up the older part of the campus. Yeah. As you can see, it is very hilly around here. Unlike a lot of universities, the KU does not have any sort of physical education requirement. The rumor as to why being that there's so much walking required up and down hills that it would simply be redundant. Way off in the distance you can see that tall structure, the Orient Hotel. Pretty nice place if you're visiting Lawrence and you want to be on the campus. There used to be a little sub shop and a tavern there that was popular amongst students back in my day, which of course has now been many, many years ago. Anyway, so that's our look at the KU campus. Hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know. We can show you a lot more. Okay, everybody, I hope you enjoyed that look around the campus of the University of Kansas. If it was just too much for you or too long for you, we've got a short right ahead. It's a short tip once again from our good friend PJ, who just has to be a part of all these Wednesday shows where he feels left out. Now, we're happy to have him. Let's see what sort of creative cocktail tip he has for us today. PJ, take it away, whichever way you are.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Wednesday Show's Cocktail Tip of the Day. My name is PJ from PJ's Cocktails, and before we get started, John, thanks again for having me back. This has been a great 8 days of vlogs. All right, so back to tip of the day. Today's tip, ladies and gentlemen, how to properly open a bottle of beer using a church key. Now, some beer bottles have a twist off, some don't. This one has a twist off, but we're gonna open it with a church key because some of you don't know how to do it, and we want to prevent injuries. So, here we go. First, insert church key so you have a good lift on the beer. Next, hold the beer with your left hand or right hand, depending on which hand you like to hold with. Firm grip, lift, and ladies and gentlemen, success. You've opened a beer. Cheers. John, cheers. And real quick, Bud Light was the only thing left in the fridge, not my first choice. Now, back to John and the Wednesday show. Cheers, John. Cheers, everybody.
Okay, PJ. You know, you just don't get information like that on most YouTube channels. There's a reason. All right. So as I mentioned, I was going to briefly discuss this week in Vegas history, a popular segment that we did for a number of weeks. In fact, the Wednesday show was basically all about Vegas history. And I did enjoy sharing some of the information that in many cases I had researched just for the show. Looking for an event that took place sometime in mid-June, I stumbled across the grand opening 25 years ago this coming week, June the 21st, of the Monte Carlo Hotel and Casino. Of course, just a few years ago, the Monte Carlo transitioned and became Park MGM. But it was around as the Monte Carlo for over 20 years. It seems to hold a warm place in the hearts of many Vegas fans. Personally, I was never really had very strong feelings about the Monte Carlo. It always felt kind of like generic casino hotel to me. I never did stay there. I remember eating the buffet there. There was a buffet at Monte Carlo, at least for a while. It wasn't very good. I mean, it was life-sustaining, I guess we'll say. I do remember the Monte Carlo having the Lance Burton Theater. Lance Burton was kind of a big deal in Las Vegas for a number of years, and he was featured regularly at the Monte Carlo. The design of the Monte Carlo was supposed to be reminiscent of a casino in Monte Carlo, and that's pretty much the extent to which that was a themed property. You just looked at it and said, oh, look, it's cool. It looks like a casino in Monte Carlo. But the inside of it really never carried out that Monte Carlo theme at all. And the rooms, while a generally good value, much as they are now, since it became Park MGM, were, you know, very sort of average, middle of the road Vegas rooms pretty much from the time they started. One of the things that people seem to miss about the old Monte Carlo, other than just the nostalgia, was the pool area, which featured a lazy river. Not quite as extensive a pool complex as you might have at MGM or Mandalay Bay, but one that apparently people enjoyed, and they particularly enjoyed the lazy river part of that, and that went away when the pool was remodeled for Park MGM. They also had a sort of Street of Dreams retail area with a number of, you know, shops, and a brew pub, which I think was just called the Pub at Monte Carlo. In retrospect, I wish I had sampled the place, though I might not have appreciated it as much back in the day. I was not that big on sort of micro brews and different kinds of beer as I would later become. But it was one of the first places in Vegas, I would say, along with the brew pub at Main Street Station, I would say, which opened up probably around the same time frame. Was one of the first places in Vegas to feature beers of different kinds. So, but yeah, like I said, I don't have a lot of memories of the Monte Carlo. It was set back. I mean, it still is set back quite a bit from the street, but for many years it was like just a hike through nothing to get to the Monte Carlo. So it was one of those places, if you weren't staying there, you had no particular reason to go there, and you were just sort of walking up or down the strip, and you get kind of tired, it's like, I'm not going to walk down there. I mean, there wasn't that much to see. I do remember for my 50th birthday party, a couple of my friends stayed there, so we spent a little bit of time there on that trip. I remember eating something at the food court. Like I said, there was absolutely nothing wrong with the Monte Carlo, though in later years it definitely was in need of some refurbishing. It had the classic bar top sticky machines. If anybody's played video poker will know what I mean. But again, just it never really had a particularly warm place in my heart. But it appears that a lot of people do miss it. And I guess I'm a little mystified by that. Not as mystified as I am by the number of people that seem to miss the Imperial Palace. But so that was the Monte Carlo, opened up 25 years ago this week. And that's going to be this week in Vegas history. As usual, we've been running long all week with these videos. I do so appreciate those of you who have watched and commented on them. We're not going to do this again anytime soon, but we'll be doing the Wednesday show again next week. We may do another field trip. I don't know what we're going to do next week. It's whatever strikes my fancy. Of course, we'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow we're doing our Thursday live stream, Afternoon Delight. You won't want to miss that if you're home or, if you're across the pond somewhere where it'll be early evening. Feel free to join us for as long as it seems like a good idea, which that could be like 5 minutes, who knows. Anyway, we'll do that and then a couple more shows and we'll be done with 8 days of Vegas tips and tricks. Thank you again, as I say, so much for watching. We appreciate it. And until next time, I hope you have a great, lucky, and healthy day, and we will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.